was tall, a lot of differences. But he is trying to get, he and Charlie wanted me to hear all the wonderful talks here and represent NSF to learn more about the types of projects that they've been funding. For a background, I've been in NSF just less than a year now. My background, I was a grad student in UW-Madison, where okay, here it goes, where my PhD, I was actually in the same class as Dave Stone. So we were in classrooms together and suffering with, oh, I don't know, lots of good people. And my PhD was on the discovery and characterization of the first mechanosensitive ion channel found in bacteria with Martinak, Kung, and Adler. So it was great to hear how the field has changed since then with Liz Haswell's talk. My postdoc then was on the growth of single-celled processes in C. elegans. I wanted to move to a bigger critter. And these processes grow very long. They're not unlike the growth of flagella, actually, Wallace. And they're actually the excretory cell, single cell, and they're hollow tubes. And I did mutational analysis of these, finding a series of mutants that where's the pointer? A series of mutants that instead of a very narrow 1 to 2 micron wide tube swells up into fluid-filled cysts. That work took me through a career at the University of Kansas. Why is this? Where is the? There we go. Where looked at and analyzed, characterized the genes we found from genetic analysis and found actin and intermediate filament cytoskeleton genes and movements of early to recycling endosomes. So disrupting structures, vesicles aligned in tandem to the lumen that I discovered at this very meeting could be modeled similar to the process of cell plate formation investigated by the Drakakaki lab. KU also has had a strong background in computational biology. We have one of our, I guess, a KU alumnus here in Eric Deeds, and we suffered through faculty meetings together for many years. So I've started, as I said, as a full-time permanent program director in MCB, the Cell Dynamics and Function Cluster, about 11 months ago, all remote. So I hope someday to see that building. That is all to say that while my background is strongly in genetics and cell biological techniques, I'm really enthused at this series of workshops that you've been holding, eager to help continue strengthening support for these kinds of proposals at NSF for the synergistic advances through cell biology and computational biology. The biggest point I want to make about funding at NSF is that bio went about 4 years ago to a no deadline model. And since that time, the number of grant proposals submitted has gone way down. And while the overall quality has gone up, the average grant is better, the success rate has gone up substantially. So if you've got a good idea, work it up and apply. We currently, I'm not allowed to say what the success rate is, but it is similar to or even better than NIH's at the moment in MCB. So please, we want good quality proposals. Please send them in. And that may go up even higher if the infrastructure bill is passed. That would create a new type of engineering directorate at NSF and also increase funding for the other directorates. So that has been supported by both major parties. We don't know what's going to happen with that. At present, modeling proposals are accepted in all 4 of the bio divisions. And that includes environmental biology, DEB, which historically was probably the first area. Ecology might have been the first area where you've had computational modeling of the predator-prey relationships on the Kaibab Plateau. And they still do modeling there, and also modeling to look, of course, at taxonomy. Secondly is integrative organismal systems. They take computer modeling on questions of neurobiology in particular, and on developmental biology, like Stephanie's, Stephanie and Tom's talk earlier today. Most of the modeling, when people think of modeling, I think most of the people here think of MCB, and especially interested in mathematical and physical aspects of cell biology. And I want to also note the division of biological infrastructure, which is there to support the resources for research, and also to support human capital, mid to large scale infrastructure and centers. So I want to point out one particular program in DBI, the infrastructure, and that's they have innovation for biological research. And note that the program that they run is research to design novel or greatly improved research tools and methods. That includes infrastructure for bioinformatics, as well as instrumentation for the usual things you thought. But if you need better computer systems or to do your work, that can be proposed to DBI, to this infrastructure innovation. So solicitation number 21-502. I think Jocelyn, can I make these this PowerPoint available for all the other people afterwards? Yes. Yeah, okay.
Yes,
so I can send this to you, and then you can have links to these, or you can search the website for the numbers on here. Thank you. So I wanted to go through the MCB, excuse me, to show the 4 clusters. You'll notice there are 4 areas of research covered by MCB, and all of them are put on their website that they're interested in aspects of computation. So you can submit to cell dynamics and function. This is usually looking at cytoskeleton organelles, signal transduction, membrane structures. So it uses biological, physical, chemical, specifically says mathematical and computational approaches. And so this is, I'm on here, and so is this cluster is headed by Charlie Cunningham. Steve Klaus is a plant expert, and Richard Sear is on there as well. So 2 names that you're familiar with if you've gone to these meetings before. Genetic mechanisms, headed by Manju Hingorani, again, is looking at organization, transcription, translation, gene expression, and epigenetics, and information theory. They're also interested in modeling how information travels within the organism and within the cell. Molecular biophysics is looking and those 2 programs, CDF and genetic mechanisms, receive the bulk of the proposals that we get. Molecular biophysics is a little smaller. Again, that's looking at single molecules or single clusters of molecules, and looking at biomolecular interactions. And they use a lot of physics, chemistry, fund a lot of proposals with math and engineering. And finally, systems and synthetic biology is the newest cluster. It's looking at biological interactions across scales, and again, emphasizes computational approaches from the single molecule or even parts of a protein up through multicellular interactions. Simple predator-prey, or how cells interact with each other, as we just saw in the talk right beforehand, movement of cells. Okay, and David Rockcliffe is in charge of that one, and we'll mention him a little later as well. Okay, there is talk, if the infrastructure bill goes through, there will be possible fifth division that will be advanced biotechnology and bioeconomy research. And these will be looking for proposals to both accelerate discovery and enable engineering of biological systems to create goods and services. So I know for a fact that one of the things they're really looking at is trying to engineer more efficient photosynthesis to make algae more efficient, get power generation is one example of what they've been interested in talking about funding when they're going to interact with the new with this new directorate that will be engineering of all kinds mixed with increasing the economy, making the US more competitive. But that at this point, that isn't assured yet. Okay, so in bio, I want to talk about some of the in bio collaborative programs with mentioned some of the collaborative programs bio has with other directorates. There are two programs in particular with the Math and Physical Science Directorate. One of those is the Modulus program, which is primarily oriented towards understanding biology. And it's a joint program between the synthetic biology program and the Division of Mathematical Sciences. And so they're looking to find collaboration similar to what we have here between researchers working at the interface of MCB and math. They really encourage proposals from collaborative teams like the ones that are forming here, expertise both in math and biology, focused on development of innovative approaches to address the various challenges. And so you'll see the program officers to talk to about this. If you're thinking of submitting your proposal, I'm pretty sure the more senior people know this, but if you're a younger professor, call the program officers, write them. What they'll do is ask you to send in a one-page summary of what you want to do, and they'll talk with you about which programs might be best for those to go to. So they can be submitted to the math division or directly to the systems and synthetic biology program. The math division still has deadlines, so you need to look those up. But the MCB does not have deadlines for this. So on this, Dr. Rockcliffe is in charge of it in biology, and then there are two people in charge of the program in math and physical sciences. The other one we do with the MPS directorate is the mathematical biology, and here it's the Division of Mathematical Sciences is proposing this. So this is generally more interested in developing new ways of analyzing data using biology as its topic. So proposals, they are interested in topology, probability stats, and computational math. So you definitely want to talk to them about what they want to, what they're interested in looking at. So that one is a more mathematical program. They want biology, topics, but the goal is to discover new ways of calculating more computational tools to address the problems. Okay, then we have one program in combination with physics of living systems, and that's from the physics program, physics program in the MPS directorate, and they are looking for how the lessons learned from biology can expand what physicists do. They cover, the awards will cover a broad range of physics approaches in biology, and especially they're looking at biological questions looking at structure and energy metabolism, as well as gene regulation. So complicated interactions between genes and all the transcription factors as we saw earlier in the in physics, the person is Krastan Blagoev. In answer to question, I see question number 3. I will make the slides available after the talk, and the links are active on the slides. So they say they can do that. Okay, now, so those are the major. Whoa. Oh no, we did miss something. I jumped right over this one. And then there are other programs in jointly with the Computer Information Sciences Directorate and with the Engineering Directorate. One of these is pretty specific. They're looking specifically for biological structures that can help with information storage. The goal is to make chips that have 1,000 times the storage capacity based on novel concepts from the biological sciences. So but if you're interested in looking at how information can be stored through biological molecules, this is the computer science one, semi-synthetic biology, and that's also generally looked at by people in the synthetic biology division in MCB. Okay, those are the major cross-discipline programs that we have. We've got a little amount of time. There's other things to note. Your collaborators, your mathematical or biological collaborators don't necessarily have to be in the United States. There are 2 countries right now that can be jointly funded. So NSF has a joint program with the Binational Science Foundation of Israel, and those proposals require 1 US PI and an Israeli PI. You make a single proposal submitted to both agencies. It will be reviewed by each. NSF will provide funds to the US PI. Israeli BSF will supply funds to the Israeli PI. And so this is a chance to garner the expertise of people who aren't necessarily in the US. It's a standard NSF proposal, although people are looking, the reviewers will be looking to see if it's a good collaboration, and also if the students in your labs will have the ability to travel and learn about the complementary field of study that you have. And actually having your students go from one lab to another is also true for collaborations within the US. That's always looked on very favorably by panels I've seen, and allows the students to gain knowledge both of biology and of physics. NSF is working on trying to get a similar arrangement with France, and they have another more specific program with the United Kingdom, and with a incredibly long name, looking at biological informatics. DBI looks at cyber infrastructure together for that program. iOS is looking at the interaction with the British UK Research and Innovation Council on how microbes interact with the immune system. And so that's a little tricky for NSF because we're not supposed to do health-related research, but other aspects of microbial interactions with the immune system would be welcome. Quantum biology is again looking at biomolecules that give rise to quantum mechanical effects that include photosynthesis, olfaction, respiration, and vision. If you're looking at that scale of interactions, then MCB you can interact with a researcher in the United Kingdom. And then synthetic biology in MCB also has a joint program looking to try to build synthetic cells in order to understand biology. So simplifying the cells, removing aspects of a cell to find out the basic cell that can survive. We've seen proposals that look at making synthetic cells with the ability to incorporate novel amino acids, novel metabolic components, or other cellular components. by how cells work. Okay, so I want to close with just a few thoughts about what makes competitive proposals, what makes for successful application to NSF. Besides the novel idea, research question, it's got to be a original idea. It's got to be a mix of feasibility and boldness. If it's, if it's completely feasible, it's probably not going to be a great, they'll say it's incremental, too bold, and it's not possible. The panels always look to see if the research plan will answer the questions and if the experiments proposed are justified. And then particularly, they're going to look at the collaborations. You should have complementary expertise with the person you're collaborating with. And I want to reiterate something said at the workshop section where we introduced biologists to computational biology. Reiteration of your modeling strengthens the proposal. We've seen lots of proposals where people do, one aims on experimentation, the second aim is model building, or conversely, we'll have a proposal that starts with a model and then does experimentation to test the model. Those do okay, those are good, but it's much stronger if you put in a third aim, experiment, model, and build the model based on experimentation, then go back and reiterate a third aim, verifying that model via further experimentation. That makes the proposal much stronger, that you're not just, we've all seen papers, most papers have a lot of experimentation, and then figure 7 is always a model of what you thought happened, a drawing of it or something. But for a proposal, you want to go that extra step and say how you're going to test that model to verify it. Or conversely, starting from modeler's point of view, model, experimentation to test it, and then how you would improve the model as a third aim to do that. That is so. And for the younger people, I do want to say most proposals get turned down the first time. So if you're a postdoc or an assistant professor, curse the panel, curse the program officers and all that, do that for a day or so. But don't get discouraged. Read the reviews. The most important thing is the panel summary. Any individual reviewer can be completely dead wrong. The panel synthesizes what the reviewer said and argues about them. And so the panel summary will go over and explain what factors of your proposal led to the decline. Those are the things you need to correct, not every little thing in the reviewers. So ask others in your department to help you with it, and then reflect on what they're actually saying. And then always, I'm happy to talk to people. I'm eager to talk to people after their proposal's been declined. In most cases, I can go over what was regarded as a strength, what's a weakness. I can't tell you what to do, it would be wrong, but we can say what the panel especially found good or bad, and then plan on resubmitting. Don't give up in generally. So with that in mind, I'm happy to meet you here at any of the remaining social events, or you can write me at this email address, or Richard, he's still around, and Charlie is around all the time. We want you to send us your best science. Please ask us, send in proposals, please ask us, and make appointments. We're happy to read your one-page summaries of things. So thank you very much. And I think we've got time for questions now.
Yes, thank you so much to Matthew. If we could show him some love with some, that would be great. So we do have a few questions posted on KaiStorm. So one that we have is, could you comment on the broader impact section of proposals, how to write it, and what makes it competitive?
Okay, you'll notice I left that out because I want specifically to address the computation and biology aspects, the intersection of those. But broader impacts are on every proposal. They're critically important. If you don't have decent ones, the panel will generally not like it. In biology, I can't, especially. The broader impacts are, they can be aspects of the proposal itself. Often proposals on plant efficiency will say how they're going to feed the world, well, or take one more step towards feeding the world. But in biology, they're very often educational. The goal of NSF is to push all areas of science to all areas of the country, to all demographics, and to all stages of education. So having programs, they don't, if you've ever applied for a career award, the career awards for beginning assistant professors requires the broader impacts to be directly related to the to the subject matter. Here, they don't have to be, but generally we want to see two things. We want to see outreach, some form of outreach, and some form of bringing bringing science training, education, and outreach to groups. And it helps if there are underrepresented groups. That could be demographically, it could be women, it could be any group that's not seen so much in science. We've seen them outreach to elderly groups. We've seen outreach to rural areas. We've seen outreach to prisons, all sorts of areas. It doesn't have to necessarily be, you don't have to come up with a new program. If you are involved in lots and lots of programs on your campus, those can often be very strong, but it helps to say how you're going to reach out to people who are not necessarily very science literate. Also, how you're going to bring people of all stripes into your lab. And if you do have an outreach activity, it's really useful to have some form of assessment, some mathematical aspect of it afterwards to determine how effective that outreach was. Does that answer what?
I think it does.
Yeah.
If not, we will, if there's a follow-up, please post it in the chat or in KaiStorm. I do see Elizabeth's hand up, so if you could unmute and share with us what it might be.
Hi, Matthew. I wanted to follow up a little bit on what you just said. Specifically, I wanted to ask whether it would be okay to collaborate with someone who is very involved in outreach activities. So for example, my university has already a dedicated program for educational activities in high schools and elementary schools. Would me pairing up with that person be considered appropriate, or would that be a no-no?
I think that's appropriate. It's not necessary. I might check with Charlie later to make sure, but we've seen, I don't know if they necessarily would be, no, actually I have seen that. They can be a co-PI on it even. But quite frequently, it's very nice if you are going to have outreach with somebody who's an educational specialist. We've seen educational specialists, we've seen psychology professors for some of the outreach. We've seen lots of proposals where there will be somebody at Big Name U collaborating with a predominantly undergraduate institution department to bring students who don't get a chance for a lab experience into their lab for the summer or during the fall. Those are very well represented, and those can, if it's a true co-PI in that case, that can be submitted as an RUI, even a proposal, even though you've got a major university person on there. So in fact, actually with your outreach activity, the panel always likes it if you have money set aside to make the plan that work, that shows you're really committed to it and it's really going to happen. and you will be assessed on how well it happens too in the annual reports. So that's definitely a benefit. So okay.
Great. Thank you so much for your question, Elizabeth. We have 2 more questions in Chi-Storm as well. So for MCB, what are the typical grant durations that NSF prefers? Can one request, for example, 5-year funding support?
You can request it formally, but and the career awards are 5 years. We don't generally recommend them. 3 or 4 are the standard lengths that most proposals come in. So at 5 years, the problem is the problem is that the government only lets money go for 6 years, so you only get one extension. You can only have one extension, and then all the money's taken back. So we found it's safer for people to propose 4 years, and then they can get 2 extensions. Those of you who've had grants know that the first extension is not reviewed at all. It's just the PI says they want it, and then they get it. The second proposal, the second extension, you need to say why that's occurred, and say mommy, mother, may I, to the program officer. But it's I've very rarely seen them turned down, and especially with COVID, it's pretty much these last 2 years have been, well, anyway, yeah, bad.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, sure.
I see Eric's hand is up, and then we still have a few more questions in Chi-Storm. Eric?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. So, Matthew, great to see you. This is better than a faculty meeting. So
hard to believe.
I know, right? But the question I had is, based on this and everything I see coming out of the NSF, the paradigm as it seems right now is that all of the computational or mathematical or theoretical work is kind of meant to be collaborative and testable. But not all of the stuff that we develop works that way. So we were having a conversation earlier in the week at one of the networking sessions about how sometimes, you've got a kind of like maybe a mathematical modeling framework you want to develop. And, DBI tends to focus more on bioinformatics. Yeah. And this is not an informatics thing. This is about, making the modeler's tasks easier or developing new frameworks to ask new kinds of questions. And from my side, there are times when, this idea that the ultimate way to think about some kind of theoretical or computational or mathematical construct is whether or not a line goes through some points is not what we need. There's actual need for the development of theory. And Jinhua pointed this out earlier, that in physics, often one is developing conceptually ideas for quite a long time before you even understand how you're going to be able to theoretically or experimentally test these things. So I'm just curious if there's any conversations in the NSF beyond collaborating with pure mathematicians, which is also not, I don't know how many pure mathematicians we have here, but I'm certainly not. I'm not in a math department. My proposals don't belong in DMS. So I'm just curious if you've at all seen any conversations about that, if there's any interest in funding those kinds of proposals that may actually be purely theoretical. Yes. Like because there's actually, you're not looking to validate. There's nothing to be validated. You're asking questions about what are possible things. What is the structure of these systems? So that's maybe a bit of a selfish question because I like that kind of work myself, but we've seen many examples of that in this talk, in this conference as well. Some of what Angela DePace was doing, some of what Wallace was doing. There's aspects of that could be benefited from maybe some time to incubate the ideas in a theoretical sense. So I'm just curious if the NSF has any interest in supporting that.
I think we could. I don't know. I guess my first thought is that sounds more like an advance in mathematics, or not math as much as.
You're not proving new theorems. So for mathematicians, what mathematicians want, and this isn't even necessarily applied math. See, it's a natural science, and in a natural science, you have theory, right? So, you know, Einstein didn't develop the Ricci curvature tensor, but he used it, but it wasn't really even applied math, right? It's not focusing on the math, it's developing a conceptual framework in which you can organize a lot of observations. And it may take time to actually test it directly against data, but it's not mathematics because you're not actually developing new math. And what mathematicians want is new math. That's what they're interested in. And that's great, they should be. But this is not what I'm talking about, actually. Maybe it sounds a bit foreign because we don't traditionally do it in biology, but anyway, I think it's important, so I just thought I'd throw it out there.
I would say if you've got an idea, I'd run it by, and if you're looking for a new structure, I mean, new way, maybe synthetic biology might be the closest we've got currently. Are we talking about it? They haven't talked to me about it, but it's a big organization.
Yeah.
And so I would have thought that maybe math biology would be interested.
And I'm not talking about for a proposal of mine that I'm thinking about. I'm
I'm just saying anyone.
More generally.
I think it would depend on the specifics of the proposal to see where, you know, if enough of these come in that are falling between the cracks, then that indicates the need. And so I don't know, you know, I mean, math biology says it's interested in new computational tools, which that could be what you're looking at, which would new algorithms to look at biology. So I wouldn't throw them out completely. I'd talk to the people there first, probably.
So,
But we could talk about that. I mean, I'll bring that back to Charlie and Richard and talk about it too. It's David.
okay, so Eric's question made me think of something. It's really on the opposite end of the spectrum of his question. And I have to say, Matthew, I have a bone to pick with you, not you in particular, but an MCB panel from about 8 years ago, maybe it was 10. So here's my beef. Well, I submitted a proposal with a modeling aims, and it got funded, but one of the reviewers picked on the modeling and said, well, there was nothing new about this modeling. There was nothing new. It was old math. It's like the anti-Wallace-Marshall view. And so I just think, one, I would like you guys to make sure that the focus is on advancing biology using computational tools and not inventing new math.
Right.
And secondly, I think it's important, this is one of the hurdles I think we have, is to interest very talented, knowledgeable modelers. Sometimes they want to do something new, and what our work calls for isn't that new. So I just think this is an issue to be discussed. In MCB, the goal is to advance the biology first and foremost, right?
Right.
And we want to use computational tools to do that, but the emphasis shouldn't be on the novelty of the math.
I agree. I agree. So what I would say is, did the panel summary, so we have to, whatever the reviewer says, we have to put it in. You're going to see it unless they give away who they are in it. We're required to put it in, or we can redact it only if it says, I mean, I remember redacting one said, I spent a year in this person's lab a couple years ago and it was great. So, oh, well, we can't. So reviewers often, every reviewer gets some things wrong, and some reviewers get almost everything wrong. So I would say I would definitely talk to the program officers back then to say why that was wrong. And especially if you did get funded, that gives you a lot of clout to say why that review was wrong. And then they won't ask that reviewer very often anymore. But then individual reviewers, and always check the panel summary, because one reviewer can get things wrong, but did that reviewer's views carry the day in the panel summary? Then that's a more deeper problem that needs to be addressed.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So yeah, I want to follow what Eric just mentioned. So I feel this, nowadays we see a lot of emphasize the computation, mathematical. That's really exciting. But at the same time, a lot of mathematics, we really, just explained, we really discourage or make the life of those a small number of theoreticians very hard. Reason is, as Eric said, we are not trying to say, okay, there's a complex biological, we want to know what's the underlying mechanism, right? Want to give the insight.
Right. So
this is let's just make an example of my personal experience. When I was postdoc with George Auster, there's a big problem. If I probably work on flagella, so you may know this. Howard Burke mentioned this torque speed relation. That's a complex problem.
I know Howard.
Yes. And I was a postdoc. I was there. I showed. Oh, it's very simple. It's just there's second law of thermodynamics, and we have this PNS paper on this. Then when I was a faculty member, I also a few years ago published a work on this olfactory receptor selection. That's a 2013, 2004 Nobel Prize, right? And there also, people have worked on this for many years. Then we showed how simple physics explain this. So those kind of research like this, you have nothing. Then you have the physical insight. You have this aha moment. Then you got it. But you see, this is very hard for funding. The reason is, you have those results, a lot of observation, that observation. If you have insight, you got it. Then you got it. Then that's it, right? I sent a proposal for our faculty staff to NSF, didn't get it. Then I published my work. So, well, there's no way for me to submit a new one, right? So see, this is make those theoreticians very hard. And that's make me, since especially I'm at medical school, they were heavy funding requirement, right? There's an expectation. So this made it very hard to do those kind of really, the aha, those kind of research. So I want to really point out this.
Yeah, that's true at NIH as well. Once you get it, I mean, it's always the panels. Well, we know this now. Why do we need to fund it anymore? And so the trick is to submit it to the journal and then submit your proposal the next day. So while it's being reviewed. That's always tough to do unless you can. You get the aha moment and then you immediately submit something saying what you're going to do with that aha. Now that you know that aha, how can it be applied to something else is another way is another possibility to, as opposed to timing is the only thing. But that's kind of true for publication as well, right? You're always racing to be the first to be the aha, and then.
Well, I think maybe what Jinhua, if I can just jump in, just because I sort of maybe started this a little bit, is that there's a type of aha that comes from theory. We're not talking, I mean, and theory is different from modeling. It's not the same thing.
Right.
And so the NSF has become open to modeling, but this is a natural science, and all natural sciences need theory. And even if DMS supports us, as a discipline, we need to be a fully formed, an intellectually coherent discipline. And just saying that, we don't like it because it's kind of math and theory and the mathematicians have to fund it, I think that's not, I mean, and if I were to say something to bring back to the NSF, it would be that you risk the loss of very, very good people like Jinhua and others that I've met who end up working on other problems, who have to start wet labs or something like that, and spend a lot of their time on those kinds of things. And people can be successful as scientists, get lots of grants, get lots of money, have really cool papers, but maybe as from the standpoint of the progress of the discipline, it's actually a negative. So anyway, that's my perspective. I'm obviously a complete radical, but yeah, I think it's an important thing that we as a science need to wrestle with.
So how would you deal with that?
Ooh, I don't know if it's fair to ask me that, because I just walked out on a limb. And
Or
I'm just in the
Jianhua,
middle of
I mean,
sawing the line
Yeah,
behind me.
That's a very good question, really. Yeah, I have to say, I think for the whole community as well, we have to really also promote kind of this research as well, right? And to see this is a kind of research different from computational, especially as I know at NIH, especially, that I know NSF is more open-minded. NIH really got this. Oh, there's no new methods, just like, right? Because we will be evaluated together with informatics people. The informatics people really, they will, okay, but they change the function a little, they call a different name, they call this a new method. But we always use, we use ODE. That's differential equation invented by Newton. By this, so there's nothing new.
Yeah, there's been a few things since then. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could say, I'd say that the maybe just starting the conversation about what the NSF would need to do. Is this something where in CDF or in systems and synthetic, there's maybe just a little nascent pilot program that would focus on this and sort of see, do you get good proposals? Is there a that, or something like that might be cool. And maybe, as Jianhua said, it's a issue for the community. So maybe we should get together a group of people who are interested in this. Some people in the chat were saying, Belinda said that this is a concern for people in the community. So perhaps that's something to do if there's interest from the NSF side. Get together a meeting like this or something to talk about it.
Okay. Could you two, and you said Belinda also, get together and try to synthesize what you
That's a great idea.
synthesize so that I can take it back and that would be really useful, actually.
Wonderful. This is why we have these kinds of conversations. Very good. There is one more question, Matthew. We
Okay.
are closing. We have about 1 minute left.
Okay.
I know. So the last question we have is, should collaborative projects use 1 or 2 linked proposals? And how are collaborative proposals considered from a funding perspective? Considered from a funding perspective.
Collaborative proposals are encouraged. So they do well. If they can be either both people on one proposal or 2 separate proposals. I think it doesn't really make a difference if it's 2 linked. If they're 2 linked proposals, if it's 2 separate proposals, there might be a little more paperwork, but the panel just sees both names and then the whole proposal. So it doesn't make a difference at all, except that the 2 people get both to be a PI basically on a proposal. So it helps with tenure and those kind of things. So that's good. Okay, so but otherwise, it's either way is okay with us.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
So if we could please show some love to Matthew for a wonderful presentation and for engaging us in that rich discussion. So we really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. It's a
Thank
great
you.
day. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So there are a few things that we would like to share with you as we're closing our day. So before I pass it on to Dave for a few closing words, a couple of things that I'd like to remind you about. The first thing is that we do have some lightning talks happening right after this. So please stay to hear some of our presenters share a bit more about their research. Tomorrow morning, we will begin the day with informal chats. So water cooler style. And then we'll also have lightning talks as well. The lightning talks today will start about 1/4 past the hour. So there may be a little break after our soft close. So it would be happening right in this room. So we'd come back 1/4 past the hour to start those. But again, before we close, I'd like to hand it off to David Stone to share with us a couple of words.
I actually don't have any words to share, except
Okay.
everyone should be up bright and early for tomorrow, our last day, and we've got some important and interesting events. Not least of all would be Rob Phillips' keynote, and importantly, our town hall meeting at the very end. So see you all, got everybody tomorrow or at the lightning talks. Well, when is that? Just a few minutes, right?
Yes, so the lightning talks will start at 4:15 p.m. Eastern time. And for those that are not on the Eastern time zone, it would be in the next about 13 minutes. So we'll have a little bit of a break. And if everyone can just return back to the space for our lightning talks, that would be wonderful. So I think that is it. Other than that, Donna Lynn, is there anything else for Malachi?
I don't think so. See you at the lightning talks.
Okay, all right. See you all in a bit.